News Radio 840 WHAS coming up on the Louisville Real Estate Show. What happens when the seller of a home you're buying decides to take an item they promised to leave? Also, why you need to be aware of lazy national mortgage companies. We'll explain that. And the number one thing buyers look for when they're buying a home. Hi, everybody. Bob Sokoler, owner of the Sokoler team at RE/MAX Properties East. Thank you for joining us on this Sunday. And we're here till the top of the hour. Joining us, Chuck Crosby. He's the owner of the Crosby Law Offices. They do real estate closings, wills, powers of attorney, and a lot more. You can reach Chuck to schedule your closing, because you can pick the closing attorney you want, at 499-6360. Also here, in for a vacationing Randy Rocky, Steve Phillips, who's over at Swan Financial. They do a great job of getting your loan to the closing table. And that's what we all want, don't we, when it comes to getting their loan, right, to the closing table? Yeah. And you can reach Steve and Randy at 645-0736. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the near future, please don't hesitate. Feel free to give me a call. I am thrilled to come out, talk to you. It's me. No home too big, no home too small. All you got to do is give me a call on my cell phone, 376-5483, or go to bobsellslouisville.com. And if you're thinking, by chance, you want to get a home value estimate immediately, right now even, you can go to WeSellLouisville.com and click out on the top and fill out the form. All right, our first question goes to our buddy Chuck Crosby over at the Crosby Law Office. Danielle has a problem with the home she's buying. In the purchase contract, she says in this email that her agent specifically wrote in that the wine refrigerator would stay. Now, several weeks after the acceptance of the contract, Chuck, the sellers are saying they plan to take that wine refrigerator, which Danielle believes was worth about $1,500. And the seller said they're going to give her about $250 to replace it with another wine refrigerator. Nothing's been put in writing regarding the swap. It's all been verbal communication. And Danielle wants to know what her options are. Can't wait. She wait for the walkthrough and then maybe not close when she sees the refrigerator is missing. What are your thoughts, Chuck?
I think at this point you need to document the situation. Okay, you want to get everything carved, all the issues carved right now, so that if something comes down the pike later on, any litigation, they can't change the story. So what I would do is, I don't know how this has been communicated back and forth, but however it has been communicated, you get the one agent to contact the other agent and just say, hey, look, paragraph whatever in the contract says this wine refrigerator stays. Don't know what you're talking about. What makes you think you can just take it? It's in the contract. And then see what they say. Okay. If they say, oh, yeah, well, we were hoping, blah, blah, blah. We didn't notice that, whatever. Well, now you've got their story, so that if it does end up in litigation, they can't come up with some third story. Oh, your son said we could keep it, or something like that. But you get it just locked down, get the issue locked down. I don't know that you can not go to closing over this issue. To just walk out on the contract, you got to have something substantial. I don't know that a refrigerator staying or going would be considered substantial. Okay. So you don't want to go that route, but lock it down. Say, hey, we're not letting loose of it. We expect it to be there. If you take it, we're expecting to have a new one of similar type.
All right. So she's up against it, and you say, don't refuse to close. Take it to the...
Yeah, don't refuse to close. But lock down the fact that you said, no, we want that refrigerator to stay. If it's gone, we will be coming after you.
We move over to Steve over at Swan Financial. Steve, Jason sent us this email. It says this just happened at the end of June. He writes, I was all queued up to buy a house, inspections, appraisals, all were good to go. And of course, we had the pre-approval from, and he uses the name of the mortgage company. We're not going to use their name, but I'll just say there's a logo of a spaceship in their logo of their name. And hopefully that tells you. Well, he says literally days before closing, they basically said we were not these. Jason wasn't approved for a loan. Apparently, debt to income ratio was too risky, etc. He says, I have no idea how such a simple initial credit check balance sheet got overlooked until the very last moment. He says, we were first time home buyers, never closed before. Does this happen? So, Steve, tell us first, let's not use the name of the company. How often does this type of thing happen, and why did it happen to Jason?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's a heartbreaker, especially as a first-time home buyer, for sure.
Yeah.
Taints the whole process. It does happen. I mean, I get calls from realtors all the time that need assistance with buyers that have had approval letters that, when it comes down to it, has no ability to close, but we do save a lot of them. The reason, most of the time, obviously, it's loan officer error. Bottom line, they're probably not collecting the income documentation. They're just accepting what is put into the system without verifying. And that's an important step. That's the step that gets the difference of closing a loan versus not closing. And if you're working with the loan officer and he hasn't asked for your income documentation to document or verify what actually is available for your income that the underwriter is going to use, not what you say you have, not what your hourly rate is, because that's not always what the underwriters use. But what we can use in our true debt to income ratio dictates how much you're approved for, and in some cases, whether you're approved at all.
All right, we move on back over to Chuck Crosby. A reminder also, we are a big believer in reviews. I would check the reviews of any mortgage company, anybody you're going to use, including us as the Sokoler team. You can see our reviews. We've made it easy. Go to LouisvilleZillow.com or LouisvilleGoogle.com. We think we do a pretty good job. Chuck, Betty buying a house and is 3 weeks away from closing. She wants to get her decorator into the house so they can walk around and come up with a plan before she closes. The sellers are refusing to let Betty and the decorator into the house until Betty produces a new letter from a mortgage company that the loan is proceeding as planned. Betty says she's already supplied an initial pre-approval letter from the mortgage company. So, Steve, you may want to jump in on this as well. And so she says she doesn't have anything else. Meanwhile, she's still trying to find a way to get the decorator into the house. Does she have any legal recourse at this point?
No, the contract allows for someone to go in the day of closing to do a walkthrough to make sure that the house is in similar condition, normal wear and tear excluded, from when you entered the contract. I've seen where they have just, said, no, you can't go in. Most places they do. Most people will, recognize what you're trying to do, but no, I don't know of any way to force them to allow you to go in.
Steve, is there anything that could be written? I mean, just a regular update from a loan officer might suffice for the sellers. Is there some standard letter that you could generate? Not you. This is not your loan, but is there something that a loan officer could generate?
Yeah, I mean, if one of my clients came to me and said, hey, I'm in this situation, my seller won't let my decorator in without a letter, I generally am going to accommodate them. I don't think that the loan officer would be against that for the most part, unless they're having a problem and there's a concern. Then that'd be a kind of an unfortunate red flag. But most of the loan time, I wouldn't have a concern with that. It's uncommon. Usually the approval letter is going to be the only letter that we need throughout the whole process. But if under this circumstance or special circumstances the second one's done, I think I've done it once before, but the seller had gotten burned on a previous contract where the loan officer had told them, hey, everything's going great, and then at closing it blew up or they didn't close. So the seller wanted some additional concern that not only approval letter was on, but when we got through underwriting, they wanted the verification it actually was something that we could clear. So something along those lines, we accommodated. And in that case of the writer for this letter here, I would, I think if they reach out to their loan officer, hopefully they would accommodate that request.
A question, if you would like to sign up for our newsletter, we actually have a newsletter. It's bi-monthly. This week, the topic is hire a pro for these 4 home projects. Go to welovelouisville.com and sign up. That's welovelouisville.com. Sokoler.com. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we've got an interesting look at what home buyers are looking for. The number one thing that home buyers are looking for. Continuing with us after the break, Chuck Crosby. He's the owner of the Crosby Law Offices over here in Louisville, and you can go to him for real estate closings or for wills, powers of attorney, foreclosure defense, and the like. You can reach him at 499-6360. Also, Steve Phillips in for Randy Rocky over at Swan Financial. Randy's got a couple of days off. You can reach Steve and Randy at 645-0736. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the near future, we would love to be able to help you. It's a free, no obligation call to me. I'll come out, we talk, and give you the game plan, what we can do to help you and what maybe needs to be done with your house or not needs to be done. You can reach me at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. And for a free, quick quote on what your home is worth, go to WeSellLouisville.com. That's WeSellLouisville.com and click at the top of the page. We're back in a moment on News Radio 840 WHAS. News Radio 840 WHAS, the Louisville Real Estate Show, here with you till the top of the hour. Thank you for sticking with us on this Sunday. Continuing with us, Chuck Crosby. He is the head guy over at the Crosby Law Offices. They do a phenomenal job on getting your home loan closed, as well as doing wills, powers of attorney, foreclosure defense. You can reach Chuck at 499-6360. Also here in for Randy Rocky is Steve Phillips over at Swan Financial. If you're looking for a mortgage company, the nice thing about Swan is they shop the loan to get the best rates for you. And that's a great way to be able to get your best rate. You can reach Steve or Randy at 645-0736. If you're thinking about selling your home or even buying a home, I would love to be able to help you. You can call me for a free, no obligation analysis. I'll come out. We'll talk as long as you want. There's no home too big, no home too small. You can reach me at 376-5483 or go to bobsellslouisville.com. Number one thing home buyers are looking for, see if you stack up against this. In a survey done, nearly 80% of consumers say if they saw a sign, do you guys want to take a guess first what the number one thing might be, Chuck, Steve? What are the number one thing that buyers want when buying a home in a home?
Can't even begin to think.
All right, that's fine.
I've got ideas.
Well, here's what the survey says. If they saw signs of a pet in a home, it wouldn't deter them from making an offer as long as there was no damage to the property, according to a survey conducted by Quicken Loans earlier this year. 2 in 10 people even said a pet-friendly home would make them want to increase their offer. And in fact, when polled, it seems that pet-friendly homes, 66% of American households own a pet. And according to the American Pet Products Association, about 1/5 of recent home buyers said they considered their pet when deciding what neighborhood to live in. That's according to the new research from the National Association of Realtors. How about that?
Really?
So
now that's odd.
It's pet driven. I will tell you, when I was looking for a new home with my wife, we have 2 German Shepherds, and LaDonna and I were looking, and we found a house in Norton Commons that had a nice size side lot. So yeah, we put them up there as well. So anybody who loves their pets, they're going to look for them. So, all right,
for sure.
We'll move on. A quick question, Steve, for you at Swan Financial. We're expecting the Fed to meet this coming Wednesday, and you're hearing through the grapevine that you're hearing rates are the short-term rates coming down?
Yeah. So, the anticipation is we are going to see something, especially at the last Fed meeting. The indications and the verbiage that they spoke of definitely gave the notice and that we are going to see those rates coming down. How much? There's still some, movement on that, but it does look like this long-awaited trend of seeing the rates decline are finally here. We've been waiting for it for about 2 years, and so it's long needed, but they are in motion, not moving as fast as everybody wants, but they're definitely moving in the right direction, and the continuing look is we're still going to continue even better.
That's good news, and we could see them. That'll transfer down the road to interest rates for home loans,
Oh,
quarter a
sure.
point, half a point. That's all good news in terms of buying your next house, or maybe selling your existing house and buying a new one. Chuck Crosby, Daniel says he's purchasing some land in Henry County from the owner. He's coming up with $35,000 in cash. The owner is financing $10,000. He is saying in this email, what type of paperwork should he get from the seller to ensure he does not lose his $35,000? Chuck?
Well, first off, you have the property deeded over to you. Okay, it's that simple. Contracts for deed, bonds for deed, land installment contracts. You want to avoid those. Just go ahead and do a normal mortgage with a note and a deed. That way you own the land, but the seller would have a lien against the property for however much. If done by a competent attorney, they would have an interest in the property that could be foreclosed on if buyer doesn't pay, but it would secure the buyer and the seller both.
Okay. So it needs to have, and I suspect you're going to agree with my next statement. Don't go online to get a form to get this
Yeah,
done. Yeah.
I've seen way too many Henry County properties where, the seller, he's owned the property, it's been in the family forever, he's selling off a big chunk of farmland. Yeah, I can write the deed, I can do a land installment contract, and then the feathers fly.
Got it. Moving on, if you want to see what some of our sellers say about us as a Sokoler team for handling the sale of your home, go to LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. That's LouisvilleSellersTalk.com. Steve, we've got an email from Phil who says he listens to our show all the time. Thank you, by the way, Phil. He says, I'm getting ready to purchase my first home, and I've heard plenty of horror stories. Is there a site or app? It's a good question. Is there a site or app that can help me get the best mortgage deal? Steve?
Best mortgage deal. So, I know we are a broker, as you mentioned earlier. We get to shop. We have 45 lenders that we can shop for. So in our system, we have a kind of what we call a loan sorter sifter that kind of goes through our lenders' rates and gives us an output. So we do have that. As far as something consumer related, direct to consumer, I don't necessarily know of anything because there's so many lenders out there, some that you see advertised on TV and some that don't advertise at all, and you've got to know who they are to use them. So it becomes difficult for that all to be correlated into something usable for a end consumer. The brokers, we can do that for you. Other than that, watching things on TV, online, doing your shopping, checking with a couple, of the local banks. If you're going to go with the bank route, do your shopping and do your check with other ones because, they're not all the same. But as far as something that he's looking for, I can't necessarily think of anything offhand.
Okay. If anybody knows of an app, let us know. I'd love to promote it, but it sounds like you need to have someone who you can trust, and I would tell you, folks over at Swan, you can trust. Back over to Chuck Crosby. At the Crosby Law Office, Amanda says her ex-husband built the house she's currently living in. Chuck, they divorced in the year 2000. She got the house. She wants to sell the house now, but is aware of some shortcuts that her ex-husband took in building the house. She's wondering what her responsibility legally is and what she should do about a potential concern that she has about those shortcuts. Well, Chuck.
It would depend on what type of shortcut we're talking about. If it's a shortcut in painting, I diluted this, or I only put one coat, well, that's one thing. If it's hey, I only put in half of the ceiling joists, that's a whole other ball of wax. If it has anything to do with the safety, quality, anything substantial as to the house itself, then yeah, you got to disclose that. Otherwise, the new owners are going to find out, and if it's a real issue, they're not going to sit still for it.
Chuck, is it worth it for her to have a home inspection done prior to listing the house so she could put her mind at ease or know what she's up
Yeah,
against?
I would think that. I'm not a builder. I've done stonemasonry, but when it comes to construction and wiring and all that, I'm not going to know. I may think that there's a problem, but I don't know it. So get somebody in to, tell you that there isn't a problem, or there is a problem and how to fix it.
Yeah, I think that might put her mind at ease based on what she's saying in this email. All right, moving forward over to Steve Phillips, Swan Financial. Steve, Wally has been qualified for an FHA loan. His agent says that he will limit the type of home he can buy by using an FHA loan. In this email, he says specifically, while Raleigh writes in that he wanted to buy a fixer-upper, but his agent says an FHA loan won't allow it. So he's wondering, what are some of the more common things FHA won't allow when it comes to buying a home? Steve?
Yeah. So FHA, VA government loans, rural housing, they all have what they're looking out for your health and safety of the buyers. So they do have some requirements that conventional loans don't. Primarily what I've seen that has gotten issues on appraisals, the three top ones at least. The number three is handrails. If there's no handrails on a porch that has 3 steps or going to a basement or a second floor, we need handrails on steps and stairs. So that's the third thing. The second thing is cracked windows. They want to make sure that the windows are safe and usable, and there's not going to be a concern of somebody cutting themselves, perhaps. So they don't like cracked windows. The number one thing, though, is peeling paint, especially if the home is built before 1976. There's going to be lead-based paint issues and concerns. So children that was a concern, eating those chip paints or paint chips and having issues with their development. So primarily the peeling paint is the main thing, which all three of those things make doing fixer-uppers hard for FHA financing, because generally those are, especially the paint aspect, things that fixer-uppers are going to need to be fixed.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Those are key elements. We wish you the best, and FHA may not be the correct way to go, but even in conventional loans, won't inspectors pick up on the handrail issue on 3 steps or more? I think they'll write that up.
Yeah, I mean, there are still certain, but the peeling paint, cracked windows, some of the appliances not being there, they are not as messy or as hard on, I should say.
Yeah, okay, but they'll suggest that they be added, but not necessarily have to be using a conventional loan. All right, I think we have time for one more question here for Chuck Crosby over at the Crosby Law Office. Donnie says he bought his first home last April. In this email, he dropped almost $110,000 towards renovations and other home improvements over the past year. He received a notice, an eminent domain notice from the city that earlier this week that they're seizing the property, and he's absolutely devastated. Chuck, does he have any recourse against an eminent domain issue where they're going to take the property to
eminent
build?
domain. Yeah, that's where the government comes in, and if for a public, or if you read the Connecticut case, a quasi-public benefit, the government can come in and take the property. Now, they have the right to do it most of the time. The question then just devolves into how much are you going to get for the property? That's why he wants to get an attorney, and they want to negotiate this. If there's no way to keep them from coming through, you want to get your top dollar. And if you just quickly roll over and say, okay, I'll take whatever, then maybe not, you're not getting that. Now, as to the whether the sellers knew about it, that's something that I would start thinking about. If this comes a couple months after getting the property, I'm betting the prior owners might have known something, and that, of course, can also go to value. And, you never know. The government may not take the entire property. A lot of times they'll just take part of it. If they're building widening roads and that sort of thing, maybe they'll just take a little bit of it. If they're going to stick a railroad through the middle of the property, well, you're probably going to lose the whole thing.
Yeah, there's not much you can do about it. There's no fighting eminent domain, right? That's the real problem.
Well, there is fighting. I don't want to say there's not. I mean, there's certain elements that they have to reach. It's just that some fairly recent cases out through Connecticut and in that neck of the woods suggest that it's a lot easier than it used to be.
What about getting an appraisal or several appraisals to show
there's
value?
A whole process.
Yeah, and I know
there's a whole process.
They'll do that, but for you to fight them if they're low on their appraisal, is that another potential?
Yeah. Absolutely. I've seen it go to court where you're saying, hey, well, obviously you'll say, hey, I deny that you have the right to do this. You'll fight that because if you just go through and say, okay, yeah, you can take the property, but I want X amount of money, you lose all your bargaining power. But anyhow, you can take it to court. You can say, hey, they're not offering a fair market value. Okay, they have to give you fair value. The Constitution's pretty clear that when the government takes your stuff, they have to give you the right amount of money. They can't just come in and seize whatever for any old price. But then again, they aren't always going to play nice either. So you have to get an attorney, you go to court, and you hold their feet to the fire and get what you can.
Donnie, we wish you the very best on this. We're sorry this has to happen to you. A reminder that if you're thinking of selling your home, we have a free no obligation booklet. It has hundreds of useful tips. If you want a copy, simply send an email to bob@WeSellLouisville.com and put selling tips in the subject line. Also, remember, you can see a rebroadcast of this show and watch it as well as listen to it. Go to LouisvilleAnswers.com, and for a free immediate evaluation of what your home is worth, go to WeSellLouisville.com and click on the little link at the top to get your value. I know I gave you a lot of information, but you can always listen to it back and hear it. We thank Chuck Crosby, who is the owner of the Crosby Law Offices. You can reach out to him because you can pick the closing attorney that you want. For real estate closings, for wills, for powers of attorney, foreclosure defense, commissioner's sale. The phone number for Chuck's 499-6360. And also we thank Steve Phillips, who's in for Randy Rocky, who is over at Swan Financial. They do a great job. They shop your loan to get you the very best rate that's out there if you're going to be buying a home or refinancing your home, because that's going to be coming up quite a bit in the near future. By the way, you do the refinance thing, you can go to Swan and then go to Chuck to have it closed. You can reach Steve and Randy at Swan at 645-0736. And if you're thinking of selling your home now or in the near future, I would love to help you. You can call me for a free no obligation review. I'll come out, we'll talk. As long as you want, I'll answer all your questions. We'll look at the house, make suggestions, do some staging ideas, and then give you an idea of what the house is worth. You can reach me at No Home Too Big, No Home Too Small, 376-5483, or you can go to bobsellslouisville.com. That's it. We're out of time. See you next Sunday on News Radio 840 WHAS.